Okay, interview with Wilfred, and Wilfred's going to tell us the story about how his father came down to be the pastor of Pensacola at Immanuel, Pensacola.
My father was a pastor. Well, after graduation in 1906, he served as pastor in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. That was part of the, I was trying to think of the name of the division that he was in. You know, we're in the Southern Division, while this one here was, I think it was called the Western Division.
I'm not sure. It might have been.
Yeah. Anyway, he served in that from about he graduated in 1906. Let's say he got there in 1907, or maybe the part of 1906. And he served in that city, Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff was a city of about 25,000 people, and it being in the South and being in cotton country, where you had quite a few blacks that lived in that area, not only in the city but also outside of it. I mean, they were on farms in that area. And he was there. Now, and that is where he corresponded with his wife-to-be, and they married, and he married in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
How did they meet?
Okay, that's very interesting. My father had a classmate back then in that time, why the congregations in Fort Wayne were all asked, how many people can you take care of? How many students can you help take care of their needs and feed them for every weekend instead of them being on their own. So he was assigned to a family that belonged to what's the name of the church in Fort Wayne that you're...
There's Zion?
Zion. But his classmate was assigned to my grandmother. And he told my daddy, he says, I got a girlfriend already. He says, at my home congregation. He said, but you ought to meet this family because they've got a boy and 4 girls, he says. And then none of them are spoken for. He said, you ought to look into that. So my father had that in the back of his head, and then the boy went home, and my dad went to his house. Now, when you were assigned a family in Fort Wayne, that meant you'd come there on Friday evening, you bring your dirty clothes, and leave your dirty clothes. Now you didn't wash clothes till Monday. That was a rule. So, well, you'd get there Friday evening and you'd bring your dirty clothes and you'd have supper with that family. And now Saturday, why, you went wherever you wanted to go, and they'd take care of your clothes. They washed it on Monday, dried it on Tuesday, and also patched it in case your button came off, while they'd put the button back on the shirt and this and that. And a snag, while they'd patch the rip. And they looked after you, and you ate with them and went to church with them on Sunday. And then after Sunday, while you had to go back to your school, and then you'd carry home last week's clothes that was already washed and dried and ironed, and you'd go back with clean underwear, and they would, and then you went back to school on started Monday, but you went back.
Oh, yeah, they
you
took
went
care
to
of you.
church with them that weekend, and then they did your washing for you, and you
That's
from
good.
the week before, because rules those days was washed on Monday, you dried on Tuesday, and that, you couldn't change that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how did that relate to how he met your mother?
His classmate was assigned to my grandmother,
Okay.
and
So,
he said you ought to meet that family, and so he saw to it that they met.
But he had a girlfriend, didn't he?
He had a girlfriend, yeah. But I say, at church the next Sunday, when they all went to Zion, he got to tell his bunch, introduce them to my dad, and I mean to my dad's family and that other family. They possibly knew one another. They didn't know who had who, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But that's the way he met his, and then they started writing one another, and they became engaged, and then they married.
Was he in Pine Bluffs when they were engaged?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in Pine Bluff.
Okay, and they were married in Arkansas or married in Fort Wayne?
I know he took off and went up to Fort Wayne.
Okay.
I think my grandmother probably went because she was living with him for a while in Fort Wayne. His aunt, the lady that raised him, she possibly was in Fort Wayne. I don't know if she went to the wedding or not. Probably did. I don't know.
Okay. All right. 1 second, Wilfred.